Liverpool are very interested in Italian centre-half wonderkid he's been branded as, Geovanni Leoni from Parma. He's 18 years old. He started 17 games for the struggling Italian side last year, Parma, which clearly shows for me how he's trusted in that side, right? He's played nearly half the games for a relegation-bound side. That's surely impressive, right? The responsibility there on an 18-year-old lad's shoulders is pretty huge, and he seems to have dealt with it very well, according to reports. He's listed at 1.95 metres. He's a tall centre-half. Being tall doesn't necessarily coincide with you being a strong aerial presence, but in this case, luckily for Liverpool, if we do sign him, he is. That's the one stat for me that jumps off the page. 80% aerial duel success rate last season in the Serie A. This is a very tall, aerially dominant player physically. He likes to use that to his advantage. He's not particularly... I wouldn't say he's not particularly fast, because I'm going to show you some clips during this video and you'll see how fast he is. His recovery pace isn't particularly quick, but he seems to make the yards up. It's like a bit like Konate, not particularly rapid in terms of acceleration, but like Konate will make that ground up with his legs. You know what I mean? The power. He's obviously got very long legs and he's going to cover ground. Maybe like Gravenberch we could relate that to. We're just going to talk all things Leoni today, what we know about him, what the positives and negatives could be, and if we do sign him, where's his position in the squad? Welcome back to the George Scaife channel. Loads to go through today. If you're new around here, do be sure to subscribe. Look at that clip, by the way, I showed you at the start. The composure to see the man come in to nutmeg him. I mean, what the hell? To nutmeg him, play the pass. There's a few clips as well. He's played up against Vlahovic. He's got up against Lukaku. I've got a clip here of Lukaku lying on the floor, and Leoni dominated him. He was praised highly in that game. Excellent against big forwards like Lukaku. His tight mark and his aggression, his clean play. He doesn't particularly foul. He likes to use his, as I say, his strength and his presence to his advantage. He likes to win the ball high up the pitch. Now, I'm going to show you this graph here. Now, it doesn't look particularly amazing on the face of it. And as I mentioned at the start, that stat, which was 80% in aerial duels, is the only stat really that jumps off the page. This guy's not particularly excelling in the numbers department. But that's fine, because you can look at other parts of his game, right? You can actually watch the play, which is so much more important in my opinion. But the only stat that here does jump off the page in terms of on the ball is possession won. Like, possession won, this guy's going to win the ball half the pitch. A bit like Konate, he's comfortable at jumping. You know, when they just step up and they'll lock onto a striker, they jump up and meet the player in the midfield, as opposed to maybe Van Dijk, who's more conservative. Van Dijk was more willing to let the player run at him and win the ball there. Konate, for example, is more likely to step up and jump and try and win the ball half the pitch. Leon is that kind of guy. I would definitely compare Leoni to a Konate figure as opposed to a Van Dijk figure. But yeah, these stats are not particularly overwhelming, or not particularly, brilliant to look at. However, I would say this, like, Liverpool, obviously Van Dijk and Konate are going to excel in terms of carrying, in terms of passes, progressive passes, certainly. Parma don't play like that. Parma were a relegation-bound side. Like, they're not trying to play expansive football, I imagine. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you like I watch Parma every week, but I'm assuming the progressive passes are not done from the centre-halves, and Leoni hasn't got that responsibility. So this may not be an indication of him as a player. It may just be an indication of the club he's playing at. So take that with a pinch of salt. However, you've got to assume that is definitely a facet of his game that needs to be improved. He scored against Cagliari. Is that how you say that? I've never known how you say that club. Cagliari, I've always said it. Calgary? I've always said we'll sit with Cagliari. He scored a standout performance in Parma's shot 1-0 win over Juventus. That was the game, actually. A lot of people were kind of going, turning heads like this. I think Forbes, I've read it. It's a really good article about this player. They speak very highly of him. And again, his stats aren't particularly overwhelming, but it is like, there's more to the game than just stats, especially for a centre-half. I think it's so important to look at more. And we've seen some really nice bits of play. That clip at the start I showed you, the little nutmeg on that player to pass it out the back. The shrug off, I think it was actually Vlahovic. It might have been someone else. He shrugged him off, knocked it over the head and played the pass. He's willing to get stuck in. He's willing to put his body on the line, and he's going to use that presence, that frame that he's got to his advantage, which I definitely like. Yeah, against Juventus. 3 tackles, 2 interceptions, 6 clearances. One of the best players in that game by all accounts. He's excelled against big forwards, tight mark and aggression, clean play. That much needed physical presence, which I think we've lacked at times. I think Kwanzaa is one of the players who does fit the mould of maybe he's tall but not great in the air. I don't think he's unbelievable in the air. Kwanzaa, I don't think he's ever has been. But this guy seems to he's just going to add that frame, add that physicality in games we perhaps need it. Certainly cup games, you're coming up against quote-unquote worse oppositions who are willing to be more physical, like they're trying to even the playing field right by being more physical as opposed to being more technical. Leoni in those kind of games in the cup would be excellent for Liverpool. He's comfortable stepping into midfield, scans danger, focuses on interceptions. Scouting notes, which, listen, is all I'm going off, right? I'm not an expert. None of us are. I'm not pretending to be something I'm not, which is so important on YouTube especially. The scouting notes, which I've seen, a really good journalist, to be honest with you, I should have written down his name. I've just written down the website on Scouting Stats. Go and check it out. He values his keen sense for intercepting plays and disrupting attacks. Like, again, this is a player who, he seems so intelligent for his age, and that responsibility is surely a good thing. Yeah, he's played 17 games in a struggling Parma side, but is that not a good thing that he's been trusted to play in those games? Like, them games are kind of life or death, like, for the club, right? They mean so much more than just a mid-table side. The fact he's been thrown in there and trusted at 18 years old is a really good thing, in my opinion. 17 top games, there we go. Top flight games, sorry, there we go. Despite Parma's relegation battle, linked to Napoli, Juventus, AC Milan as well. Inter Milan, seems to be all the top Italian teams that kind of turn their heads. At Leoni, value him at 15 to 18 million euros, I've seen, which, to be honest, I don't know if that's a bit optimistic. I don't know if we can get him for cheaper than that. I think we likely will be looking at getting him for cheaper than that. But this is a low-risk kind of signing, right? Is it not? Because if he doesn't work, if he's less impressive than we thought, you sell him for 10? Is that not? Am I being naive in saying that? Like, how bad can a player be in 1 year? In 1 year, if it doesn't work out, you just sell him for a bit less than you bought him for. And it's relatively low risk with a very high ceiling, very high upside, you know what I mean? So I think it's really a signing we should be looking into. The cons, we're going to weigh this up. We're not going to sit here and say, well, it's all sunshine and rainbows. No Champions League, obviously, no Champions League or Premier League experience. No senior minutes for international team either, which I guess is an issue. But to be honest with you, I think it's so hard to get into international sides now. It's not even it can't be a stick to beat them with that he's not played for his international side. He's only 18. When you're getting players like Pedri and Gavi and Yamal and Musiala and all these top talents who are so young now, and they seem to be getting younger every year, it's becoming the norm to have these young players not just playing for the national side, but being one of the best players in the national side. Look at England, how young Saka was when he came in and started playing really well Parma. Like, it's not normal for these young players to be coming in and doing what they're doing. So I don't think that's a problem at all that he's not played for Italy, to be honest with you. And he's not going to come in and start every game. Like, this guy's going to come in and learn from Van Dijk and Konate. And how good is that to have two players like that? Certainly Van Dijk, to come in and slot next to Slot. It was a Slot joke, please laugh. I've done that a few times now. I think no one's got them, but hopefully you're clocking on. Like, how good's that to learn off? You know what I mean? It's a brilliant, I was going to say father figure, but that's a bit cringy. But is that that bloke you can look up to, right, and kind of fall on. Physical duels are good, but he might struggle against top-tier forwards consistently, like every single week in the Premier League, in the Champions League. Which, will he start in them games? I'm not sure. Probably not. You've got to say no. But look at Liverpool's record in defensive injuries. Like, Konate's been known to pick up injuries. Gomez is pretty much injured all the time. If and when, let's be real, let's assume, when Leoni would be called on, is he going to be thrown in there and kind of thrown into cold water? I don't know. That's a thing he's not obviously proven. We have to assume that he'll be all right in those games. And I go back to that awful season. All our centre-halves were injured. We're throwing midfielders in there. We're throwing Kabak and those kind of things. You got to imagine him in that position. Is he going to be okay? I don't know. That's one thing you got to put in the cons section, definitely. He's certainly not ready to start, but he needs 1 or 2 years kind of seasoning as squad depth, which is absolutely fine. 1.05 tackles, 1 interceptions, 4.5 clearances per 90. It's not great. It's like, it's all right. But again, he's playing for a relegation-bound side there. Not as good. Is that his job in the side? Is his job to make line-breaking passes? Probably not. His pass accuracy is 90%. But as I say, he's not trusted with those line-breaking long balls, which is fine. Again, I don't think people should read into that too much. I guess you should definitely write it down in your cons category, but maybe take it with a pinch of salt. Passable foundation, of course, but he does need refinement in stronger defensive environments for me. And yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, right? 80% aerial win rate, but Parma allowed 1.35 goals per 90 whilst he played. That's not great, right? Keeping a clean sheet in just 18% of the matches he played in. Could be exposed by elite power forwards in Premier League's higher level. The Premier League's obviously, there's higher intensity in not just the duels, but in all the game and all the facets of the game. It is just much faster. How many people come to the Premier League and it just doesn't work, right? We've seen that so many times. A potentially exploitable weak point under top-tier pressing. That's if he starts in the big games, which you'd like to think he wouldn't, but if he's forced into doing that, is that going to be a problem? A promising long-term investment at 15 million euros, a high upside, low risk, should be signed with patience, a plan for gradual integration via cup games and backup, as I said. He's not a stopgap starter, but potentially a future starter by 2026. I would say 2027 alongside maybe a Matt Gahey, maybe a Van Dijk and a Konate if he stays. There's so many questions in our defence, and this answers, to be honest, it answers one of them, and that is we need a fourth choice. And this guy, hopefully, is that beyond Gomez, beyond Konate, and beyond Van Dijk. We need to not go crazy with this signing. He's relatively not unknown, but unexposed, I guess. I'd love to know your thoughts down below. We all know the same thing, right? We're not trying to pretend we're something we're not. I'm not a Palmer season ticket holder, but I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Granted, what I've just said, any additional thoughts, I'd love to hear them. And if you are so kind, if you'd be so kind, leave a like down below if you enjoyed and subscribe so you don't miss another video. Thanks all, guys. Thanks for everything. Bye.